Dealing with how you're going to run a quick half marathon. So we're looking at the idea of being able to run a sub 90-minute half marathon. So if we're thinking about endurance performance, the holy trinity of things you need to think about are: one, what is called your VO2 max. That's your maximal oxygen uptake. Two, it's how economical you are. So that is trying to use less energy for the same speed. And three, what we call the lactate turn point, which really denotes where you start to produce anaerobic energy and that idea of lactic acid production. So when we think about being a really high-performing endurance runner, a really good half-marathon runner, so the key thing we have to start to think about is how we can get you to be more economical. So it's like having a car that does 40 miles to the gallon versus a car that does 80 miles to the gallon. We prefer the 80 miles to the gallon car. And that's what we want for you as the endurance runner. So how do we achieve that? Well, we've got to start thinking about increasing mileage. The answer is not just doing lots and lots of miles, it's about doing lots and lots of miles that are then done at the right intensity. We don't need to go excessive in terms of the mileage, no more than probably 60 to 65 miles in any given week. The key is how hard you're going to do that. And so what we then have to think about is doing that at an intensity that it is going to be hard enough that it promotes the economy, but hard enough that also allows you to work with some lactic acid in the system, but not so hard that you suddenly hit VO2 max. We have to think about doing long continuous runs where your heart rate, if you're using a heart rate monitor, for example, is above 160, no higher than, say, 170 beats per minute. We then need to think about introducing intervals, but don't think that intervals are the answer. Don't hit intervals until you've got all this base work of training in. So think about how you're going to increase mileage. If you're trying to do that, increase it gently. Don't go for a sudden increase in the mileage. Build the mileage up. And then towards the time that we get to the half marathon, so let's say the half marathon is beginning of March, probably about December time, start thinking about how you're going to introduce intervals in. Now, the intervals have to be done. They're short bursts. So we're looking at least 4 minutes per repetition with a recovery that's about the same amount of time. And as we get closer to the marathon, we can actually bring the intervals up a bit more and reduce some of that volume of training in terms of the mileage. Then the final thing to do towards that end point of the marathon is then to start to take the intervals almost out of the training and start to get back into doing some more of those longer runs at a higher tempo. The aim of all of this then is that what we have, hopefully, is an athlete that is capable of running sub 90 minutes in an economical state.